This conference will now be recorded.
It is 6:01 PM on September 24th. This is the Monterey Select Board coming to order. I'm Susan Cooper, acting chair of the Select Board. With me is Frank Abbott and Justin Maycook. Normally the chair is online. So what is the first item on the agenda?
Well, you got it done. You called the meeting to order.
Wow, yeah, okay. So
I can get that one, I have to write it down.
Scott's up. Okay. Tax rate classification hearing with assessor.
Yes. This will be short.
So, what do you got to tell us?
Not much, we don't have enough, commercial industrial to
Yep,
set up a separate tax rate, same every year. I think you need 20%, we have a very, very small percentage.
Yeah.
Less than 7, so no separate tax rate is possible.
so, the usual.
Usual.
Alright. Anything else you need to tell us or report or?
No, everything seems to be going along just fine. I'll just start working on the tax rate in another couple of weeks or a month or so. And that's it, no, everything's going well.
You have any questions, Justin?
Scott, do you want us to vote to confirm that we're doing one tax rate?
One tax rate, yes.
Okay, so I move that the select board confirms that the town of Monterey will have only one tax rate in the FY 26 tax year.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Yeah. Aye.
And
You
Justin,
vote?
yes.
Okay. Alright.
Nice seeing you
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Scott. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Scott.
Chris Andrews, town clerk, come on down.
Evening, everybody.
Good evening yourself.
So first, we have proposed early voting schedule. I have the proposed schedule already posted to the website, but it definitely can be changed upon pending approval from the select board. Stands as Saturday, October 19th, 1 to 5, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, October 21st, 23rd, and 24th. Those are my regular scheduled days of the week in the office. Early voting hours will be 1 PM to 3 PM.
And that's October what?
October 19th, 1
Right,
to 5.
And
And
then the
21, 23, 24.
Okay.
And for the presidential election, they actually require 2 weeks of early voting. So that's the first week.
Okay,
The second week will consist of Saturday, the 26th, also 1 to 5. And then October 28, 29, 30,
same Monday,
1
Wednesday,
to
Thursday.
1 to
thing.
3.
Right, yeah. Okay.
It's
Are
actually
there-
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that second week.
Oh, Monday,
Yes.
Tuesday, Wednesday. Are
Yes.
there any requirements of a certain number of hours and are we meeting them or is it certain number of
Those
days?
are
Those
the state required number of hours. In the future, and I don't foresee this being applicable to the local election, but for the next state election, would be 2 years from now, the town can vote to reduce those hours. I think the vote has to happen something like 14 days or 21 days before the election. We can revisit that, but once again, it's in 2
The
years.
town as a whole or the select board?
The select board representing the town.
Okay.
It would have to be posted as that was what you were discussing on
Right.
the
Yeah,
agenda,
of
so that
course.
it'd be,
People comment,
yes,
right.
exactly.
Um,
And then.
but if they're your
Sorry.
regular hours, is there a reason to do it? To reduce the hours? Is it a burden on you? So far?
Not necessarily. For the presidential election, I've opted to have,
All of them.
yeah, and also poll workers and police officers present as well. We received a $1,000 grant from some regional board for police officer details for the presidential election.
For early voting or for the election
Both.
itself? Both.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
And that was done through Carrie Sullivan, who's the town clerk of Lenox. She kind of spearheaded it
Cool.
and then just reached out to all the smaller communities and said, hey, all you have to do is accept this verbally. It's retroactive though, it's a reimbursement, it's not a
Is it
proactive
grand
thing.
enough to cover all those hours?
We'll probably run a slight deficit, but
Okay. But still,
Definitely
it's not that I
cover the-
won't take the $1,000.
Oh, yeah,
I
cover
was
the-
just wondering what
cover
the
the lion's
cost
share
was.
for
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
for sure.
Excellent.
Polls on election day will be 7 AM to 8 PM, and then counting
Yeah.
afterwards, however long that takes.
Okay.
Any other questions on early voting?
You good, Justin?
Sounds good to me, yeah.
Okay, I did receive the warrant today as well, but I need to fill in some of the blanks, literally on the warrant. Maybe next week's select board meeting, I could appear again and we could do that, have it signed. I don't personally need to appear, but I could have it, here for you guys, I'll sign. So I could put that on the agenda for next week.
Sounds good.
And then I'll take care of the constable signing it from there. Let's see, one other thing I'd like to just put out there while we're in public session is I would like to formally throw my hat in the ring for to be considered for the administrative assistant. I've been serving now as town clerk for almost 2 years. I feel that I've fulfilled that role well. Since being appointed as town clerk, I've proven myself to be reliable, hardworking, and dedicated to continually improving and educating myself to better serve in my roles as at town hall. I have the flexibility and time in my schedule and desire to expand those roles. Many towns, including New Marlborough and Sandersfield, have placed their town clerks in the role of town administrator's assistant. I already have a detailed understanding of the inner workings of town hall, and I've proven that I work well with Roger. Also, I already work with a lot of the software programs that Roger uses, so it could be plugged in there pretty easily. I'd also just like to say thank you to the select board for the opportunity to serve as town clerk and continue my education. And I look forward to the possibility of expanding my role in town hall.
And
So,
I wanna thank you for being an awesome town.
thank you.
Yeah, stay on top of a lot of moving parts.
It is a lot of moving parts, but we've got a lot easier than a lot of larger municipalities. We're up to over 200 applications for early voting, and we have 672 registered voters. So once again, Monterey is above average in all of the voter participation, turnout, and everything.
Cool.
So that's kind of the state of affairs of the town clerk's office.
Okay.
And I will certify the setting of the tax rate on Friday. I cleared that with Don Clausen.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
But I wanna go ahead and officially make a motion that we accept the early voting hours as specified by Chris, the town clerk.
I second the motion.
I'm in favor, all in favor?
Yes from Justin.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, that's unanimous.
Alright.
Thank you, sir.
thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too. And I put those hours on the calendar already, so they're on the town calendar.
Good.
website.
Great, and they're posted on the town clerk tab as well, and posted physically at the library and the post office.
Great.
All right,
So the
thanks everyone.
question would be able to transfer.
Bye.
Oh, posting them up.
Yeah. Everybody.
Well, the transfer station and the library are always like the
We
big
should
two,
put them
big two.
Yeah.
I wanna just throw out there, like, I know we talked previously about the town clerk staying a part-time position and not having the same person do that and the admin, because that would then make it a full-time position, but I think it might be time to consider what, maybe run some numbers on what the additional cost of having that person be full-time and sharing those two things would be to the town.
Mhm.
Because it's not like we're having heaps and heaps of excellent applicants for that part-time admin position, read none. And, it's an opportunity, maybe we can't afford to do it, but unless we have some numbers, it's really hard to make an important decision.
I agree, we should explore it, I mean, because Phil, he needs the help and, it's just, it's worth it. Like you said, we'll ask the question, what's it cost? Is this the best way to go? I don't know, but it's not a no at this point.
I just wanna know how it would affect us.
I just wanna mention that, I have come in and seen the work that Chris does. I've seen how he and Roger work well together, just as an observation, and I think it would be an excellent choice, and the money shouldn't be the problem. It's getting a good person to fill that job, and I think that, he could work both. He painted his office. He made his office up nice, I mean, he cares.
I didn't see that under
And
qualification.
he's showing initiative.
Yeah, and,
But he's shown a tremendous amount of initiative.
pardon?
He's shown a lot of initiative.
Yes.
And, and he wants, I think there should be further discussion.
And we need some knowledge of what it involves, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I just
Right, I mean,
I want some
it's
numbers
just,
so I can make an informed decision.
you should have the numbers, but it still should be, the least part of it is getting and keeping a good person that is showing interest and, just looking at his office, he's got an interest in that job, he wants it to look nice. He doesn't want it to look like a, holes in the walls, whatever else, and, I don't blame somebody else for not doing that, but it's just that he has done that.
Yeah.
And as I said, he works well.
My office was already painted.
I know
when
it.
I got here.
I know.
But also, he's sought out training.
What are you doing this
He's done a
weekend?
lot to educate himself, he's
Yeah,
works hard to try to make sure he's up to date and.
he has pride in what he's doing.
And if he doesn't know, he recognizes that and doesn't pretend like, oh yeah, well, whatever. There's no pretense of, oh, I got that when I don't.
Yeah.
And I think that, for me, that's important. I
It's an
mean,
important
like, everyone
part, yeah.
makes mistakes, you have to be able to accept your errors and move on. So,
Thank you for correcting me, and I'll try to do better next time.
next up, what do we got? Hold on, I think that's okay. The park grant restrictions on library.
That's why Mickey's here for.
Is that why you're here? Yeah.
It is part
Well,
of the
yeah, I mean, that's
conversation.
something, I think I should be here for that. I might have been able to skip, but I can't skip it.
Do you wanna say something about it?
You're all familiar with the issue, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, so what we'd be getting would be $3,318. And library property would be forever restricted the library could not do any extension on it. And the thought that I had, because it had been kind of mentioned and I thought about it, somebody said something about making the lower level accessible for use with the public, kick me out, or when I retire, that he'll be over with all those book sales things. And so you need an elevator. And the easiest way to do would be an external tower. You could not do that. If you accepted this $3,000, you could not do that. So it just has absolutely no
Well,
sense.
and also it restricts us from ever changing the building or.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one thing I thought of it.
But for $3K, that's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I
If it
think
was
I,
3 million, we have to think about it.
but it's forever.
I know.
And that's the whole thing. I won't be here forever and neither will any of you. It's like, we don't have forevers, but that will be forever an infringement on that property, so that, but I think that it has to go at town meeting and we have to make sure it's turned down.
We do have to put it on the town meeting, that's what we're required to do. I understand too, based on an email, that the Parks Commission also voted against it.
And for the same, at this point, it's just a park, but at some point, maybe the town wants to put worker housing there, or I don't know what.
A pickleball court, not pickleball.
No, I got that in my backyard, not my backyard, next door to me.
And, I could deal with the having to put handicap parking down there, although it would significantly increase the cost of the
Right,
project,
and
but-
that's not the end of the world, it's the fact that you're restricting
It's
yourself
restrictions
forever.
forever, yeah.
Forever. But and it bothers me that this application ever ran, because the facts were not known.
It doesn't bother me because we were never obliged to go forward with it. And
But we almost didn't know about it.
it was one liner, which is a little worrisome.
It was the
Yeah.
fact that Rob was on vacation, so Mark was called in, and he happened to hear the word restrictions. And he said, I don't know what it was about. So I said, well, I guess I better find out what the restrictions about. And that's how it happened. I mean, it wasn't, here it is, there were gonna be restrictions on this, it wasn't forthcoming. It was a matter of we overheard a chance.
Yeah.
Hearing something, which you could have missed because,
It
I
would have been
missed
easy to miss, but fortunately,
yes, that
We were-
it is, but the fact that everything was not upfront in this whole process, I mean, the fact
I
that,
think it's because it was last minute, that stuff happens, but that
And,
doesn't
you
mean
know,
it's a
and
good idea.
and it didn't actually originate in town. It was originating out of Berkshire Regional Planning.
Again, because we were trying to meet the open
Yeah.
space planning thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was ill intent on their part either, so.
And so when you were getting the open space thing, you didn't know either about this part. So this whole park thing kind of just slid in there without anybody knowing. It wasn't known when you went for the open space thing, and you're going like, well, how's that gonna impact us? What will that mean? So.
It could have been, I mean, if
Yeah,
it
that-
weren't for the weird restriction, it could have been really nice to get a little bit of money to make that small project happen, but
It came, from my understanding, it came out of the need to find funds, additional funds for the ADA piece of the open space recreation plan, because there wasn't enough funds for that. So there was a reach out to find more funds, and that, because part of that's kind of where those funds sort of came from. It was from that piece. So it's kind of weird how it happened, but yeah.
Yeah, it was not a clear picture.
Yeah.
From what I can see.
I
And,
agree, because I was.
I
very-
gave you all the paperwork that I had, as the more emails came after, but you have those anyway.
is there anything we have to act on in terms of signing anything regarding the park grant?
No, I actually received, just today, I received all of the information specific to it, the financial information specific to it, as well as an email, as well as a link for the mandatory meeting about accepting it and all the paperwork. So I have to call Melissa Cray. Cryon, I think her name is, and talk to her about this whole process, because, I got a congratulatory email and all this wonderful stuff about how we have this, and I need to call her up and say, well, Melissa, what happens when we don't vote it? Because we still have to vote on it,
Right,
and then, because I'm
you
still.
voted down.
I'm
right,
still
yeah.
confused about, I'm still confused, and I have to talk to Seth Jenkins from Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, because I just want to verify that the money that was for the open space recreation plan is actually still there, because that's part of it as well.
Right,
And because it was like a two-step process. It was do this first, this, and then the park grant was all part of it. And so I just want to make certain that if we vote no for the park grant, that it's not more than just $3,000 that they're promising us right now, that there's other monies. That's what I want to
Make sure that's secure.
Yeah.
But
that's what I'm
the
concerned
way it read was that you had to apply for the park grant and you had to vote on it. But it didn't say
That we had
anything
to
about
vote.
you turn it down, and you have to watch what you say to her.
Mhm. Yeah, so I was.
what you could say is, we're concerned, what if the town votes it down?
Yeah, that's how you
Yeah.
put it, right, exactly.
You don't have control over that.
You don't have to tell her that.
So that's why I had.
There are
'cause-
people picketing out here already.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting, it was on the agenda, and I got all this information, knowing all this other stuff is happening. Because I was assuming that they would wait until we voted on it, until we actually were given the money, but technically, we've been given the money. So, it's weird, it's a strange
But if
process.
you turn it down, you don't get the, actually get it. It's been, in
Right.
other words, we've been approved for it,
Yes,
but we haven't accepted it.
we haven't accepted it yet, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
But I'll find
sometimes,
out more.
sometimes free is very costly.
Yeah,
It's something to remember.
Yes.
so I have to call Melissa before that meeting, or before that, training that you're supposed to have on it, just to kind of see what's going on, so, yeah.
And I'm presuming we're voting on this in the November meeting, not waiting
Yeah.
till May.
Yeah.
but-
Yes, I think you have to do it at the soonest.
The soonest,
Yes,
the soonest.
Okay, anything else on
Not
the
to-
park run?
Just, Roger, would you be able to find that letter we signed saying we would put it on a town meeting warrant? And just send that to us, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, just taking notes. Okay, next up is to sign the driver assisted suction harvesting contract.
I have that here, it's the only, company that's done it in the past few years, New England Aquatic Services. They have their cost per man hour and everything. They just need it signed sooner rather than later because it's getting towards that point where they can't do it anymore. Normally, there's a space here for, it would be the chair that's signing, it has Justin's name. I mean, I can hold on to it if Justin wants to come in and sign it, I can get it that way if you wanna do it that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was wondering, the cost per hour, I have no problem with. Something that doesn't seem to be explicitly stated, but is kind of implied, is that they're gonna do $30,000 worth of dash.
Mhm.
And our whole budget was 30,000, but we've been spending money on the other consulting projects, so our budget's actually really slim. So I didn't know if we should hold off a week and see if we could get a modified letter.
Okay.
I just,
I can reach out to them.
because I don't know what to do. I don't even know if we want to put some money on the November. We got hit with a perfect storm between the NOI or the order of conditions or whatever it's called for the drawdown, and also lowering the dash budget anyway. And now we really don't have a big dash budget, and we certainly don't have $30,000 unless we find that money somewhere else. So I'm hesitant to sign it like it is.
All right, let me reach out to them. I'll call them tomorrow and bring that up.
Well, I kind of want to run it by Mike Germain or the Lake Garfield Working Group, because we're just in a precarious spot. I also don't want to say, okay, we can only do $15,000 worth of dash, but that might be what we have to do. But
Well, it seems like there's, and do we have good numbers on what we've spent already?
I don't know exactly, but we just signed a warrant for what was it, $5,000, Roger, for the
Yes.
lake scientists?
Like $4,500, yeah, you're right, between 45 and 5,000 for the lake scientists, which is what that money was supposed to cover based on.
But have we spent additional monies too? There was the lake scientist part.
There
There has been some dash work already.
That was in the previous fiscal year.
That's
kind of how it works, is they have money that's supposed to, see, that's what's gonna be strange, is that, well, last year they had $50,000
right.
in the budget, and they used 30 at the beginning of from what I gathered, at the beginning of the fiscal year, and then the other 20 or so, roughly, at the end of it. This year they've got 30 for just the entire year, but we used some of that
For the lake scientist.
for the lake scientists.
I just wasn't sure if there were things in addition to the lake scientists.
No.
Just the lake scientist.
So far,
Roger, did we pay for the freshwater mussel survey or the beaver study, or did Friends Lake Garfield pay for both of those?
I believe the Friends of Lake Garfield, I never saw anything about mussels or beavers, so.
Okay.
Invoice.
pretty sure that he did too, but it's good to hear that confirmed.
Yeah.
So the 45 or the 5,400 you just mentioned
Yeah.
was specifically for the dam issue and the drawdown?
Well, we've kind of all wrapped it up in together because it's part of the drawdown is milfoil
Okay,
control. The special article specifically is about milfoil mitigation and lake scientist. So this particular invoice was for the lake scientist,
Okay.
and specifically about the drawdown. But we did pay for it out of that special article.
Right.
What we're gonna have to reckon with over the next couple of years is Friends of Lake Garfield has basically been paying various bills and overages and dash whenever the town didn't. And we're saying that now the town is going to take more responsibility for Lake Garfield and not expect a nonprofit to foot the bill. But that means the town's going to need to plan its money or raise more money or do both.
Step up its game.
Because we don't have
Certainly, the timing was just very unfortunate with the drawdown needing a lot more attention this year, the same year that we tried to drop the dash budget.
right, because we don't have the only line item we have basically for the Lake Garfield working group is that dash budget. There's really no other monies.
Yeah.
that are around.
And also, Hillary, like the lake scientists, will continue to do work and want to be paid. So if we even allocate, let's say the bill was 5,000. If we say we'll do 25,000 in dash, now we have no money to pay the lake scientist.
Right.
So it's a little bit. Now, what I would do is accept the dash bid, but just for hourly rates, and then say the budget is to be determined, or how much exactly we have to spend is to be determined. But there's nothing wrong with the hourly rates.
So, it also seems like we need as clear a picture as Mike can give us about how much work the lake scientist typically does each year. So we can, for the future warrant, either the fall warrant or the May warrant, do a budget that's realistic that would include both the lake scientist and the dash work.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah. I mean, let alone trying to pursue a permanent drawdown permit
Point
and all
taken.
these other things we've talked about as far as the lake.
Yeah. It seems pretty clear that the state is not going to allow us to do the 6 foot every year. Like, my impression was like, that's just a non-starter, don't bother to waste your money asking. I could be wrong, and maybe we could make a compelling floodplain argument that would sway them, but I certainly, based on our discussions and reading so far, do not have that impression. Do you have a different impression?
I was of the understanding that through the current process we've been going through, exactly what you're saying, but that if we somehow saw the different permanent drawdown permitting, which would take years and be about flood control, et cetera, then potentially we could guarantee that forever going into the future, but through an entirely different process. But it's a little bit beyond me. Why don't we just try to come back to this next week and it just clarify that we don't have at the very least, we don't have $30,000 to spend on dash.
Did you want to reach out to Mike Sherman?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
I'll CC you, Roger, too.
thank you.
Just taking notes. All right.
So Concom did vote on this, but on the drawdown, but at the 3 foot.
At the 3 foot.
Yeah.
Right.
With
I had the impression
a bunch
that
of restrictions.
I had the impression that the 3 foot was gonna work for everybody, but Justin's point that we'd have to do it through a different mechanism is well taken, and the question then becomes, do we wanna pursue that, what would it cost us to pursue it, and do we need to pursue it? I mean, if the purpose of the 6 foot was mostly because there were people who didn't wanna have to take their docks out of the water, you know, sorry, not sorry. If the right? If the purpose of it is because it's hard to maintain at the 3 foot, that's an issue. If the purpose actually is because it's a flood hazard, then I totally get that. That's a different story altogether. So I think it really comes down to, are we just doing this because this is what we used to do, or is this what we actually need to do? And I don't have a clear picture of that. More questions than answers. So. Anything else on that one, Justin?
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll come back to it next week.
Okay. Next up is Highway 2 positions, promoting Tyler Collins from 3 to 2 and discussing the Highway 3 position. As I understand it, Roger and Jim interviewed, what's his name,
Seamus Garrity.
Seamus Garrity this week for Highway 3, and Jim, the director of operations.
He's got a recommendation.
Yeah, Jim feels good about promoting Tyler and about hiring Seamus. He thinks he'll be a good addition. He's got some good experience, previous highway experience.
He works for the fire department.
Yep, he works for the fire department. He already has, what's the name of it?
He has a hoisting license.
Hoisting license, but he's, both willing and enthusiastic about pursuing a CDL, which is great. So I'm in favor of, promoting Tyler Collins to Highway 2 and hiring Seamus Garrity to Highway 3.
I second the motion.
Do you have anything to say?
Yeah.
Jim.
The only thing I don't know, we have a rate that Jim proposed for Tyler, which is what Highway 2 is at, which is $28.71.
Yep.
He didn't say a proposed rate for Highway 3, which.
So in our conversations, it would be $24.60, which I think is $1 above what the base rate is, because it's $1 an hour for the hoisting license. And then that would go up as soon as he got his CDL license. That would go up $2 an hour, which I think is where Tyler is right now. I have to go back and look. I forgot to look before I came. So it'd be like 2660 or 2640, somewhere right around there.
And how's that gonna affect our budget?
Shouldn't
I
it?
don't think it will, because that's where Tyler was. I think it's just a shift of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And up and
Gotcha.
and all that, so.
And
should really,
And
actually,
Tyler will get what Highway 2 was already getting,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, in the short run, with Seamus at that lower position, will be okay for the
Okay.
time period, because he'll be making less per hour than.
For that,
Tyler
until
was.
he gets to the CD.
And my understanding how the CDL licensing was worked in the past through the highway department is that they go to a 3-day training. That is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the Thursday, Friday, this is historically how
Right.
I understand it's happened. The Thursday, Friday, they just get paid their hourly day rate from us. The Saturday, it's on them to go to that. There's no payment there. And then we effectively cover half of the cost. They pay the other half, but that other half we take out on a payroll basis until they've gotten that halfway through. So we're essentially covering their training for
Okay.
those 3 days, but then we get half of it back from them. Historically, that's my understanding of how it's worked. So we try to get a little bit of buy-in from the applicant, the person going to, yeah, so.
What's it cost?
That I'm not certain, I have to ask Jim that, so.
It's a few thousand, I think.
I think I
That
understand.
seems a little awkward to me. I feel like it might make more sense to just pay for their training as long as, we get them to sign a letter or something saying that they're committing to the town for 1 year. And if they leave before the year is up, then they have to pay the town back or something.
We
But
could try.
that's just
something like
me.
Yeah. Better. No, I agree with you, Justin. I didn't like it either. And I don't know what the fair amount of time is that they have to commit. And, it could put us in an awkward position if we
Have to go collect it.
if we had to go collect it or if we need to terminate them. But, I would rather see us support the license in return for the person remaining for a certain period of time. I'm not sure what the fair period of time is. If it's, if it's $1,000, that's one thing. If it's $3,000, I feel like it's a bigger commitment and maybe it's 2 years. But I need more numbers to,
Is that something we could ask the Collins Center or town council? Something like that, if that makes sense?
I would ask the Collins, because
Yeah.
they probably have more experience than the town council.
what a fair trade-off is. It might help to also know how much it costs.
Mhm.
Jim probably does know.
Good.
You got anything else, Justin?
Where's my Zoom thing? I can't find, oh, here it is. I think that sounds good if you talk to Collins Center and town council if necessary, but that the town covers the training in exchange for some amount of service time. And you know what? I kind of vaguely remember that from the past, a few years back, that there was an agreement that an employee would stay on in exchange for their CDL being paid for. And I don't know the full details of it or recall the full details of it, but yeah. Sorry, I kind of sidetracked everyone, but the motion had been to hire Tyler for Highway 2 and hire Famous for Highway 3. And then I would just amend the motion for the rates of $28.71 for Highway 2 and $24.60 for Highway 3.
Okay. Second the amendment. And I will vote yes as amended.
I vote yes, as amended.
And I'll vote yes.
All right. All right, crack ceiling amendment.
That is, what happened was during the crack seal project along Main Road, they had some crack seal product left. And so they were going to go up Tyringham Road and up Hoopi Road. They didn't have enough to finish it, so they just got an extra 350 gallons, finished it. It just requires an amendment of $4,921 to the original Chapter 90 contract. So it would come out of our Chapter 90 monies. It's just something that we have to, this was done on a previous project last year, I think it was, on Gould Road, something that Jim had showed me. And I basically just used that as a template for this letter. And this letter will go to David Stokes, who is the District 1 representative for Mass DOT.
So it's just a few $100s worth of Chapter 90 money?
It's almost $5,000 worth.
Oh, $5,000.
$4,921.
Okay.
$4,921.
Yeah, so
they extended what they wanted the seal company to do?
yeah, the seal coating. So they did the whole town, but at the end, when they got to the end, they had extra left over in the truck. And so it was decided that, Jim decided that they would just sort of finish up, go up Tyringham Road, and then get to Hoopi Road and go right up the Hoopi Road.
Okay.
And when they started going up the road, they realized that they didn't have enough to finish. So they just were like, oh, let's just get another 350 gallons and finish it, and that's what they did. So it increased the project that much. And
That's where I got the 350, was gallons,
Yes,
not
350
dollars.
gallons. Yeah, so they did that. It's chapter 90 money, so it's all in there. You just go through a process online. You say this is how much it's going to be based on the quote, and since the quote changed,
Right, you have to amend it.
we have to amend it.
Do we need to sign that?
Yeah, I actually, and again, this is oddly enough one that had everybody's name on it, so I just used the letter from, as a template from the last time it happened. And so I'm gonna get Jim to sign it, and then Eric Kinsharp also signed it the last time too, so, because he's part of that validation, I guess, the chapter 90 monies.
You okay with this, Justin?
Yeah,
Yay, crack ceiling. I wish I had a good sense of how much difference it makes on the road. I really don't.
He claims it helps in the long run.
Extend the long
Extend the
life
life, extend
of
the
the
life
thing.
of it,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Kinda like that, when they do the fog seal. So when they do that same product, it just sort of extends the life of the road.
That's what they did on Blue Hill?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I saw that last week, and then I saw they do the lines this week, so.
Yeah, they did the
I thought
lines,
mostly they did that because they erased the lines when they do.
which they did overnight.
Yeah, I saw, I read Jim's email about
They
that.
just did it overnight.
Boom.
Really?
I
Okay,
know, right?
done.
Oh, no, pizza.
I know, right? Okay. So next up is insurance policy for the Monterey Schoolhouse.
Yeah, and I sent that along, and again, this is another one that just says accepted by, I don't think actually Justin's name is on this one, is it? But, I mean, historically, it's always been the
I remember it from
chairperson.
last year. How much
Yeah.
is it? What's the change in the policy amount?
Nothing, it's all the same,
It's all the same.
yeah, no dollars have changed at all.
Wow.
It's like $2,300 or so. Well, actually, it's $2,200, a little over $2,200, which was the same. But there's actually a rider in here for terrorism.
Yeah.
Disclosure notice of terrorism insurance coverage, which adds a few extra dollars on it. But it's one of those things, this whole thing is again something that only has one signature space for it, so normally that would be going to, we decided on the chairperson, so.
So I can wait till the end, but I just wanted to tell you guys about an email and a phone conversation I've had. There is a family in town that approached me that is, interested in buying that property from the town to convert to a single family home to preserve the historic property, or at least the outside appearance of it. I had a good conversation with her. I did inform her that I thought that, I think in part they're interested in the historic home, and in part they're thinking that it might be a less expensive way to manage to live in Monterey, and I was pretty honest with her and said that I really didn't think it was gonna end up being inexpensive because of both the work that would need to be done on the structure and the difficulty with parking, but she remains interested, so I said that I would bring it to the select board. I understand from talking to Roger that doing anything with the property at this point would require an RFP. But I just wanted to make you guys aware that she had approached me and bring it before you.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think you'd have to put it up for auction, wouldn't you?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you do. I think, my personal opinion is we should move in that direction.
I
Because we're
think
not gonna have the dollars to invest in it, it becomes an eyesore. It's good to hear someone wants to invest in it, but.
I have a feeling that at auction, it's not gonna,
It's not gonna get all
the
that.
number, weren't you just telling me of a property that was
Yeah.
put up for auction by a town and it didn't have any bidders?
In Richmond, they put up the old,
Church, wasn't it?
no, it was
Their
their old
town
town
center,
hall,
yeah.
because they moved, they made the new one. That they were trying to get 75,000 for it, and they're now looking to hopefully get 25,000 for it. So there's nobody put an offer on it. But-
Yeah, I saw that article, but there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did look, after talking with Susan, I did look up, the septic system was installed in 1989.
What, up here?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
that whole front, it's that bump that's
So
in the
30
front,
years.
in front of the swing set there, as you're looking at the building to the right. So it was put in 1989, it was last pumped in 2014. Was the last
Boy.
time it was pumped.
But it hasn't been used.
Hasn't been used.
So,
Oh, yeah,
it's pretty
raccoon.
good, except for maybe the raccoons and
Or the
whatever.
rats.
Yeah, so I mean,
I
it's
don't
a
think
pretty,
they're flushing though.
no, I think it's seemed to be a pretty up-to-date system, it's got essentially a tank that
Yeah, but
has a pump in
89,
it.
that's 30s.
It's more than 30 years,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, it hasn't really been used, to your point, in at least 10.
I mean, and I think basically it would be an as-is condition, like
Oh.
buyer beware, right? But,
I'm surprised the insurance is so cheap on it.
well,
No, because it's a
what would they
vacated
be
bill.
paying for? I mean.
Yeah, but it's,
So, I don't know, I mean, we've talked about this property again and again, and I personally am in favor of our going ahead and putting it up for auction or RFP or whatever. I don't, at least we might have one bidder.
There might be problems with the water.
It is,
It's on town water now, but I don't know if they would accept having a residence there, because they're
actually,
not adding any
Oh, you're
residents, so
right.
I don't know.
yeah, because they do have a limit of the
Yeah.
current 72 that they have. They can't.
Although, if it's already on
It might
town
be
water,
on.
isn't that one of
But
the,
it's on town water as a school, not as a private residence. I'm just
Yeah,
thinking of that,
talk to them.
yeah.
because I hear talk about the town water, if
Yeah,
it's still out,
Yeah, you're-
people I hang out with.
yeah, it might be worth a conversation with them too. I'll have to ask Don Clausen next time I see him, because he's on the water.
and I can't
Yeah.
imagine they'd
Yeah.
successfully put a well in there either.
No, either he or.
You
or
could,
Mark
but
would know
of
that.
course,
Mark, yeah, Mark
it'd
would
be
know
like
that.
that at the roadside.
Yeah.
Where you,
Apparently the property goes back some ways, anyway, what, Justin?
Sorry. I just forwarded you all. I had been working on it with Donna back and forth quite a bit this spring, and unfortunately, it kind of got pushed to the back burner. But she did say in the most recent email that I just forwarded to you the process. We need to get an appraised value and then prepare an RFP and publish notice of the RFP in the newspaper and the Central Register. She offered to help prepare the RFP. I'm not sure of the process of getting an appraisal, if we have to get multiple or what that might look like, but we did a bit of the background work to get to this point, and then, like I said, unfortunately just got pushed to the back burner.
That's okay though, at least there's, and we can proceed from there, but it might be time to do that.
I think. it's
Yeah.
a good time.
I'll follow up with her on this and say that and just inquire about what the appraisal process looks like, and ask if she thinks that will be pretty straightforward if she wants to get a jump on the RFP, or at least she'll probably have questions of what we want the RFP to look like.
I mean, I think it's hard to put a value on the, what I'll call a reserve price without an appraisal. But I would say we would put it out there for it, the appraisal, or we could consider below the appraised value, but I don't know how that would go over with the state. I mean, obviously, if Richmond put it out for one value and they're having to do it again for a much lower value,
2/3. Well,
2/3 lower, 1/3 the original price. But it's hard to imagine any property valued in Berkshire County for 75K. So, wow. Sobering.
Do we want to just wrap this up by accepting the insurance policy? And I think in the past we have not opted for the terrorism coverage.
Cause it does seem kind of ridiculous, so, yeah. So yeah, I think we should I move to accept the insurance coverage without the terrorism rider.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Justin?
Yes, for me, Justin.
Alright,
I vote yes.
and I vote yes too. Alright. The Renewable Energy Working Group appointment, Mort Solomon. It appears that Mr. Solomon would like to join the Renewable Energy Working Group. I'm assuming that there was a request from the working group to have another member, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we appoint Mort Solomon to the Renewable Energy Working Group.
I second the motion.
Through,
Through when, next year?
I think June 30th, 2025 is when the whole rest of the group is through, so.
Yeah, I think it's only 1-year terms.
Yep, through June 30th, 2025. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, from Justin.
And as a little update on the Renewable Energy Working Group, they are having an interview with they have some interview questions and an interview with the company, HESP, to just ask some questions about their proposal
Right.
and what that means. The only question, and I'm gonna call the Inspector General tomorrow, is that because it's a public committee, there will be more than, or I guess if there's a quorum there, is this a public meeting? Even though they're sitting there having conversations with a vendor of potential financials. So I don't know, I just wanna verify that, because that was asked by the consultant, Beth Greenwald. So I'm not certain exactly how that works. I know that in my other job, we never had that because it was always departments having conversations with vendors.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know what it means when a committee gathers together and if there's, happens to be a quorum of them, what does that mean? Or maybe,
You're the
So-
only company that put a proposal. in.
yes, yep.
To discuss trade secrets or confidential or proprietary information regarding activities by a governmental body as energy supplier, municipal aggregator, or energy cooperative, if an open session will adversely affect conducting business relative to other entities making, selling, or distributing energy.
So that might,
That's purpose number 10 of an executive session.
okay, I'll, when
I don't know if that applies here, but.
I'll call up the Inspector General and ask.
You could also ask town council.
Yep.
I wonder if it matters that there's only one company that submitted the RFP, but I don't know.
I wasn't too certain, so I just said I would call Inspector General and get in touch and see if I could figure out what that means.
Nothing else, that's the only one that's a potential, so it's purpose 10, it's the only one that seems at all applicable.
And even if you have an executive session, a meeting needs to be posted and you need to enter an open meeting and go into executive session, so.
Correct.
What?
If that's not realistic, yeah, I guess by the time you and Peter are in the meeting together. Well, now we have 5 members, so you and Peter wouldn't be a quorum if you and Peter just do the interviewing, but if other members are there.
Right,
Yeah,
that's what
that's
I was concerned about, is if, once we hit that quorum number.
Is it scheduled yet, the interview?
It's scheduled for the 30th, and so it was just asked of me like a couple hours ago.
Okay, so you have time though, if you need to post.
We have a couple days, yeah.
And it's not a terrible, considering the complexity involved, I kind of like the idea that more than one person from the committee besides Roger would be there.
Yeah.
Because more ears, more questions, I think in this case is a better thing.
I'm guessing it's gonna be at least 4.
I mean, honestly, if you post it as an open meeting, I don't think there's going to be rabble arriving to disrupt the meeting.
Their meetings, the meetings have been remote, and so no one shows up, and the one time anybody did show up, it was not nice.
Really?
It was all just pornography. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it was
that's, I
terrible.
was at that meeting.
It was terrible.
So if it's remote, can't you just,
Yes,
okay,
so we did.
alright. That's weird, I'm just not even asking. Alright, are we done with that? We're done with that, right?
Yeah, you voted on it.
Fire company lease contract cover letter.
I was sent to it today. I wrote you a text back on an agreement with them.
Yeah, I saw that.
Roger and I went over posting the contract for public knowledge,
Mhm.
because we're not putting it out for bid.
Yep.
So I'm gonna put everything together and then I'll reach out to Dell, but we have to wait 30 days from the time it's posted.
So I just wanted to raise one thing with you, Justin, which is, and I know you have strong feelings on this, and I do understand a lot of the reasons for those, but I'm gonna throw out there that there are exemptions to be made for small towns where so few people are heavily engaged in town politics. And I just think that, I think that your input on issues concerning the fire department and the fire company in particular would be valuable. And I know that you feel like it's problematic for you. I feel like there is the possibility of getting an exemption, and I just think that going forward, there's gonna be a lot of big decisions about emergency services over the coming few years, and it would be valuable to be able to get your input and to hear what you're saying, what you're thinking about. We only have 3 members, and not having one of us ever engaged in this topic, I think it would be useful to have your thoughts. That's what
I think you can, I was told you can also call the state and run it by them.
Absolutely.
And the smaller the communities, the more they'll opt to say, yes, let that happen.
So
Well,
I'm just putting.
Just a little background. I had to get an exemption just to be both a firefighter and a select board member.
Right.
Just right off the bat, I had to get an exemption to even be allowed to do both. And part of the reason I could get the exemption is because we're a small town. I forget if it's under 1,000 or under 10,000. And the special municipal employee designation. However, being paid by both, I then can't participate in matters concerning the fire department or not concerning the fire department, but concerning, my wages in particular. So I've thought about at one point, if you give up pay for one position, you can, potentially participate. But then, so I have immediate family who's also on the fire department and paid firefighter. So even if I gave up pay on the fire department, I still couldn't.
Justin, isn't there a situation where you just have to acknowledge that you have that and you can still be involved in the discussion?
Let me think back, because I've done all the forums and I've talked to state ethics commissions various times. My recusal from the lease in particular was entirely different and much more complicated, and also originated, years ago in a different environment.
Yep.
Most of the times that I recuse myself, almost all concerning the fire department, are simply about what firefighters are being paid.
Yep.
Not what fire trucks are being purchased, not what kind of equipment is being purchased, but just, what are firefighters going to be paid in their paycheck.
Right.
I got advice to recuse myself on the lease in particular because in the event that, the lease wasn't secured and for instance, other towns were covering Monterey's the town of Monterey and not Monterey firefighters, then that could potentially mean the Monterey firefighters were making less money. It's definitely tricky, especially with the discussions of regionalization, because there's no doubt that questions of regionalization would affect the wages of Monterey firefighters. And that being said, I mean, I have considered over the years just quitting my position on the fire department, or even just forfeiting the pay part of it. But then it always comes back to I have immediate family anyway, so that still prohibits my my participation, and it's a serious handicap for for my involvement on the board, and I think for the board, especially because I have the hands-on knowledge of some of the stuff. But that being said, it's really thin ice, because and as much as I would like to say that I could participate impartially, I could certainly see a situation where it is hard to suss out and do your job completely impartially when you know that yourself or your family's wages are being directly affected. And I'd like to think that I could do it, but then the question is, what does the most suspicious citizen think, kind of,
Right.
and not completely without reason in a case like that. Like, if there's reason for someone to be suspicious, and if there's real reason for them to be suspicious, I think that's what the ethics law is all about. So it stinks, and now it affects the Southern Berkshire, and now it affects John Field Tree. So it's difficult, and I will think on it and maybe consult state ethics and read up on it again, because to be honest with you, it has been a year or two since I've looked at it, and I've kind of been going with status quo. But I have to say, like, the lease was definitely something different. I did get that advice from one or two attorneys of the day, and it's been a couple years, and we were under a very different environment. But as far as anything to do with wages of firefighters, and especially regionalization that could affect wages of firefighters, that's a tricky one.
Even if you didn't vote, but just gave a perspective from someone who's been deeply involved in the department slash company for years, that would be of value. Because it's good to hear, I'm perfectly capable of listening to different opinions and making up my own mind. So I don't feel like, no matter how many people give me conflicting opinions, I sort through it, and I actually value hearing things from multiple sides. So even if all you did was sit in on the discussion and participate in it, but not vote, I even think that would be of value. Because it does provide, it may be that we're all in agreement, or it may be that we get an additional perspective that we didn't have, which I think is a valuable thing, even if you didn't vote. So just another thought.
The problem there is, as I understand it, and again, I can read back into it and talk to the state about it again, but is that they really don't draw any line between voting and deliberating. And if you deliberate, because frankly, things that I would say, could and probably would to some degree influence how you and Frank talk about it and deliberate on it and what conclusions you come to. And I'm not just any citizen. So it's
Right.
tricky, and it stinks. The whole situation is not ideal, but it's particularly hard when we're really talking about wages and regionalization that kind of undoubtedly will have some either positive or negative influence on wages. Those are just kind of like non-starters. If it's about fire trucks or buildings, you can have these theoretical discussions about, well, would this fire truck potentially influence your wages or your family's wages? But when it's just point blank about wages or about regionalization that almost directly impacts wages, that's tough.
I know, it's just the regional. so huge and so complicated that I feel like the more voices I hear, the happier I'll be. But I totally respect you for being so thoughtful about it. Anyway, that was all. Thank you though for even thinking about it more. So what are we doing with the lease contract? Are we ready to go forward?
What I'll do is I'll get the letter on Monterey.
Letterhead?
Letterhead.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell Dell that this is what we agreed on, and that we're gonna post, I'll get with Roger, hopefully in the next week. We'll get all the documents ready, and right at the end of the 30 days after the posting, we'll sign the contract.
Good for another few months.
Yeah, well, we need to start the fall.
No, I agree.
If you read the contract, we're supposed to have it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hard work's actually gonna start beginning.
Okay, yeah, well, okay. Item number 11 is the administrative assistant hiring situation.
I have, received several, I've passed them on to Mary and, the recruitment, people over there. I've bounced back and forth with Mary a couple times, just like, what's going on, should we get together? And, haven't gotten anything yet, about meeting and talking about it. I just keep reaching out and see if we can find a time to talk.
It would be good to get that done, and if the real answer is we don't really think we have it, if the answer is we haven't vetted the applicants, then we need to find another way to vet the applicants. And if the answer is we vetted the applicants and there's really no one suitable, then we need to proceed from there, but this is taking too long.
Yes, I agree. And so I think it's time to just maybe go out on our own,
I think so too.
so.
And
And I can,
keep us posted.
yeah, I can start that.
Could we just say, so it's Tuesday, we're meeting next Tuesday. Would it be reasonable to say that if you don't hear back by like Thursday from Mary, you just call the
Yes,
the
I think
people?
that's reasonable.
And then just see if they're still interested and if you want to interview them. And then I certainly welcome the internal interest. It's introduces a few complications, namely health insurance and other benefits, and secondarily, I think just boundaries between positions. And I don't know precisely what that would look like, but it's definitely welcome, and I think that we ought to consider it. It kind of, the health insurance and other benefits makes it a little tricky at this time, but
Just because it wasn't in our budget for the year.
We
yeah.
kind of, we did have some extra money in there with the thought, but I think we did have some extra money in there, but thought of somebody changing from a single to a family, so there is some
That's true.
money in there.
Right.
But, yeah, so there are some ways there, so it's more the short run versus a long run. The short run, it's all about, health insurance and all that. In the long run, it's about retirement, and the retirement, depends on how many plans are making the system.
Roger, if we combine the position, what, their hourly rates aren't the same. What is the hourly rate then?
I can't, off the top of my head.
So,
can't
we
remember
have
what
to
it
think
is.
that
Yeah.
through. Okay, this is what we got for the administrative part.
Yeah.
This is what he's making now. This would be the total hours, and then what is the rate? I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, we have.
But I think like what you said earlier, Susan, we need like one piece of paper that says, here's what he's doing now, this is the rate we'd have. So we know the total number of hours, then we can start discussing it,
And it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility to have two positions someplace where you're paid different hourly rates.
I'm not sure they would, I'm not sure if I buy into that. In the private sector, they wouldn't want you to do that.
Really, why not?
I just think it gets into different things, workman's comp, if something happens, you know, it's just, I think we need to ask, can we have two different hourly rates? That becomes convoluted when you're doing a pension and you got benefits and that whole thing.
Good
So-
point, I hadn't thought
So
about that.
I think, you know, the question is, you know, is there a phase to it? I don't know, like we do now, and then we get in the next budget and we handle it differently, you know, something of that nature. But I think we need a one-sheet piece of paper. Here are all the facts, the numbers. And then we can have a larger discussion when we see it in front of us. What are the problems? But I'd be very surprised if anybody would recommend having one person with two different scales.
No, I see your point, I hadn't really thought of that, yeah.
And
Makes,
A couple
So-
other, and I don't wanna nix the whole idea by any means, cause I think that there's a lot that makes a lot of sense about it. Just a couple things as I'm thinking through it is, we also then cap ourselves to about, I mean, I think more or less we cap ourselves to 40 hours between the two positions. And I know we had previously, or I had previously at least, tossed around the idea of the administrative assistant role potentially growing, depending on how it went. If we end up doing all the things we've always talked about that person doing, I think it could easily be 30 or 35 hours. Between
Just
minutes
for
for all these
Yeah.
nighttime, yeah, and all the purely administrative duties the town administrator is doing. So that's just another concern, is that it caps the two positions to 40.
You bring up a good point, Justin, because you talked about, I remember one time you mentioned, like, you know, writing something for the Monterey News, you know, what's happening or whatever. And if that person, what are the skill levels you're looking for? You know, I mean, you gotta think it through.
but also just I mean, I agree with him that just in terms of the sheer number of hours, if one position's already at, you know, at 20, and we're talking about the possibility of the other one growing to 35, that's 55, and it's a lot more than a person can do, so.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there could be different ways to do that. You could hire a part-time person for the town clerk, you know.
Right, so
assistant
he's
town-
overseeing,
Seeing that
yeah.
he's overseeing some of his responsibilities. That's why I think we need to have the one sheet, and then we can have a broader discussion. This is where we're at, this is where we wanna go. What does that transition look like? I think there's probably general agreement that we need to put more hours to these kind of resources, you know, but we need to really make sure that we'll talk about it openly, what we have in mind. You know, I think we need to give Roger more help, and Nikki?
Or how about some help?
No, I'm agreeing with a lot of what Frank is saying, but the one thing I do wanna say is, I know that in construction, if you are operating a bulldozer, you get paid X. If you are operating a backhoe, you get Y, and you may be operating one for 2 hours and one for 3 hours and something else for 4 hours. So your day may be all broken up, and I know that if you're on like a state job or a federal job, the inspectors come around, they ask you, what are you getting paid for operating this machine? So the people have to know, so they get all kinds of different pay rates
But what
hourly, that's not,
what they do in the private sector, they'd say, okay, we all make $25 an hour, but you're gonna operate this machine, so you get a premium. Cause it's like $2 an hour or more. You know, it's, you know, that's, in the private sector, that was done a lot, because of the skill levels, because you moved them around.
So you have a base rate,
Yeah,
and then you bump it for particular
the
pieces of equipment.
Yeah, you know, but you're right, it's in the construction.
in the construction.
My experience was that it was a premium, you get $2 more an hour.
No,
So
it's an actual, whatever machine you're running, operating, each one, it's
Different rate.
one of those rate things, you know?
What's
So the
a little bit messy here, and I'm concerned as it regards rate of pay, but also just both jobs getting done is that there's some duties that there's almost there's no clear line about where a town clerk's job ends exactly and a town administrative assistant begins. I mean, there's definitely some black and white, but there's some areas where it could get
Messy.
not so clear.
I mean, I think I definitely don't want to close the door on it, but we gotta have these kind of conversations about it.
But having one rate would do away with a lot of that.
Oh, yeah, it would,
So,
but you want to be able to understand the response, you know.
Yeah.
So,
but even when it comes to something like, town clerk is supposed to post minutes, is he doing, is the administrative aide or is the town clerk? I know, okay,
you know.
alright, what's up next?
November special town meeting.
Yep,
So can I give a brief update on this?
please,
I had distributed a couple weeks ago or a month ago, just a little summary of what we wanted on there. We're hoping to sign the warrant by the October 8th or October 15th, which is in 2 weeks or 3. There's still some loose ends we're tying up and also a few new requests. The Historical Commission wants some money to add to their ARPA money and money they're getting from the Houstonic Heritage Grant, hopefully, in seeking a district. And the Council on Aging is proposing a raise for the outreach worker. And the Lake Garfield Working Group amount of money is pretty low for, especially when we look at the dash and what we had to spend on other things. I'm not sure if any of these are appropriate for the November town meeting, or we should put them all to May, or any thoughts that you all might have. My only thought with the outreach workers, I'm not opposed to a merit-based raise based on performance, etc. But usually we do that with the annual budget and not in the middle of a year.
I think their concern was not necessarily a merit, well, a raise, so yes, a raise, right? Not necessarily just a payment, a one-time payment,
right,
but an actual raise.
right, actual raise, I think that I wasn't even clear whether or not this was just the beginning of the budget cycle. So, right, which would mean it would go on the warrant for May. But I guess what I'm hearing is that in fact, Lynn was thinking to do it sooner than that, is that correct?
No, actually, Susan, to be honest with you, she never told me. I just got the emails everyone else did. I think all to say, unless someone feels inclined to put it in on November, we should probably say, okay, that's great. Let's do it through the annual budget cycle. Thanks for getting us this request on the early side.
I think their request is sooner rather than later. I think that's what they're looking for.
Right.
Not to make it part of next year's annual budget, but to have it happen this year.
There was no amount, was there? I don't think I saw it in the email.
No, she wanted to, I think, have a
She wants to
conversation.
come in and have a conversation with us, okay.
Do we want to get on the agenda?
Well, what was it for next week or the following
She
one?
said October 1st she could be here. She's away for the next couple
Yeah,
of
Right,
weeks.
October
she's
1st, that puts it real close to the 8th, but yeah, without having numbers, is it worth reaching out to her and saying, hey, if this is gonna be a mid-year request, it would need to be on that warrant, so the sooner you could get us numbers to consider, the better?
I can ask her that.
Does that make sense, Justin?
It does. I don't know if it's a good precedent when we've kind of established the annual reviews will take place in December, and then any raises will be considered as part of the budget process. And maybe it's
I-
worth talking to her more to see, is there something more urgent? Is there something kind of extraordinary going on? But if it's not not something out of the ordinary, it just seems like we should set the precedent of we're doing evaluations in December and we're considering raises as part of the annual budget process just to keep everything uniform. Because we have done before piecemeal raises for different departments, kind of to keep up with industry or whatnot. But
Like the highway.
it just,
Yeah.
like the highway department, but it doesn't, it seems like it's better if we just do them all as part of the same annual budget process rather than, dealing with some at different times of the year.
But as I recall, the highway department were part of the annual budget process.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not talking about this year. This was
No,
years
no,
past.
right, that's what I meant, but, okay.
I honestly
The
don't
last-
remember, Susan. I just like the idea of keeping it standard, especially since we're doing evaluations across the organization for the first time.
I'm actually agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. I was just pointing out that when we did the raises to competitiveness raises for the highway department, that was part of the annual budget discussion. So it's in keeping with that as a precedent.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I will get back to Lynn and I will tell her that we're more than happy to have that discussion with her and and I'll schedule a time with her. And I'll also kind of give her the heads up that we're doing raises as part of the annual budget process, so that would be considered for the May town meeting.
And then if there's an issue that we need to be made aware of, she has the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And I do have some bills that showed up that got past the encumbrance date of August 31st that will have to be paid. They were, something happened, this was back in February, sometime January, February. There was a change in how bills for the fire department phone numbers were, their cell phones, the billing through AT&T FirstNet, and they weren't sending paper bills, and they were sending paper bills, but they were sending the paper bills to the old fire department's PO box. So it looks like they were getting returned, and nothing was being sent electronically. So there was all of a sudden I got an email in the beginning of July that was, something, it was just very confusing as to what was going on. It took me a little while to figure out what was happening. And then it got past August 31st before I got back and circled around with AT&T. And so there's about, I think from February through to June, so 4 months or so of bills. It's, I think, around $700-800, but cell phone bills. It's around $700 or $800. And there may be one elevator bill, Otis elevator bill in there as well.
Do we have well, I asked you about the elevator and then give a chance.
Is there any news on it being fixed?
That's my next
Well,
one.
let's-
Ah, the next one.
So we have these phone bills that are past due,
Yes, yep.
but do we have is there a clear path on that?
It's all been said, yes, we're being emailed the bills now, so the invoices now.
Do the bills come to you or do they come to the fire chief?
I did get it. It goes to both of us right now.
Okay.
So, and I'm just paying for them.
Okay.
And I just put them in with all the other AT&T FirstNet bills that we get,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But I'll gather all that up and get the dollars to you for that.
Yeah. So we'll just have an article on to pay prior year bills. And I think that's 9/10 or actually less, depending on if the money was in the account. And they could have been paid. have people had a chance to read the historical commission request for money? Did
What
you see
about
that?
the district?
About the district?
Yeah.
I skimmed it, I didn't read it in detail, but I know I did read that he wanted to have a vote on it, you know, at the warrant. And I didn't know if there should be more public discussion about it.
And, cause like I've definitely had people approach me on both sides of this issue.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where I even stand on
I-
it. It, in general, I don't see that it's a bad thing, but there are some people that are pretty strongly opposed to it, and I'm not sure how we proceed, like whether we needed to have do we need to have a hearing about it? Or is it sufficient to just have that hearing as a discussion at the town meeting?
I think that is.
Well,
I think that's
it's-
the ultimate hearing is a vote at town meeting. So if there's, I mean,
Yeah, but
when there's money
Yeah, but-
involved.
well, there's money, but having him come in and talk about what he's doing, I don't know if I had a lot of questions from citizens, I could answer them all.
I'm not sure I could answer any of them.
I know, I mean, we got it and we have 2 weeks to do it and he's saying, well, let's do it. But, you know, one question is the money, but is that something that we want to do? I don't know. I'm not
Well,
Susan.
so just a little backstory, because this predates you, Frank. We set aside 10,500 in ARPA funds a couple years ago.
Right.
So at this point, I mean, we've committed to doing it. The consultant ended up costing a bit more. In my mind, there's pros and cons to putting it on the town meeting warrant. One thing we could do is just adjust other ARPA funds and get it all paid for without bringing it to town meeting. But one of the nice things about putting it on the town meeting floor is people can weigh in and vote no if they don't want it. And then the whole project, there's the kibosh on the whole project, and we take those ARPA funds and we put them to something else.
Right.
Yeah, but didn't we commit to more energy group?
Didn't we what?
We talked to the, wasn't
It
Peter?
wasn't ARPA fund.
It wasn't
Yeah, I think
ARPA?
it was ARPA.
It was ARPA.
We had
Yeah,
already
Peter
approved
asked-
the ARPA fund.
But they were open for more.
They were,
But we didn't have any more, 'cause we.
yeah, but he was moving money. He was moving money from what
For
was
one-
gonna be due
yeah.
down at the firehouse.
We said it was okay for him to apply
do
money that would have been applied to something else that they chose not to do.
Yeah, but it was, I think it had,
Switch it because it was still in
Yeah.
the renewable energy working group, but it wasn't new additional money. That's what I.
We didn't
recall.
change. We didn't change the allocation to the renewable energy working group. It was 15,000 from day one, and it still is.
okay.
We also never changed. We've never changed the 10,500 for the historic district, consultant. And that
Right.
being said, I think this is in some ways kind of a perfect opportunity. Some people felt like they never got to weigh in. I think this is the perfect opportunity to say we need this 4,000 extra or 4,500. I forget exactly. And people have a chance to weigh in. And if it gets voted down, we take that money and put it towards the community center pavilion or something.
Yeah,
Right.
One needs, I think you need to communicate. There needs to be some kind of public format that people.
They did a lot of public stuff. It's been a while. It's been a really slow process. And so when we added Rob Hoogs and John Higgins this year on July 1st to that commission, they've moved quicker in the last few months than they have in a while because they were kind of at a dead end. But they sent a letter to every single person in this who would live in the proposed district and put it in the Monterey News and held a meeting. And only a couple, I remember being there, only a couple people showed up. But they had an informational session and people had to vote yes or no of whether they wanted the district.
Okay.
I remember Gary Shaw showed up and I think one other person. but they put a lot of time and energy. I think Kevin West maybe.
So
He's
they,
the-
are doing they've done due
Due
diligence
diligence.
essentially.
Yeah, I
is what
mean, they
you're saying.
invited, there was months of warning. They invited everybody to this meeting and they got votes from everybody. And I forget the exact numbers, but it was pretty strongly a yes vote. There were
Okay.
definitely some no's. There was definitely a few no's. But it was strongly a yes from the residents of the district. But in some
Yep.
ways, actually, going into this meeting, I didn't really like the idea of putting it on the town meeting warrant. But in some ways, it's kind of the perfect opportunity to get a public mandate on whether or not they want this to move forward. Because otherwise, we have 10,500 ARPA tied up in something that people don't want to do.
Yeah, no, I see your point.
According to the email that he sent, they're planning an October 24th meeting.
Commission is planning to host an informal community gathering on October 24th to inform citizens and property owners about the possibility of an upcoming, about the possibility of a historic district and answer questions. And they're drafting an article for the October Monterey News.
Okay.
So they're definitely
Working.
working to
Robert,
get all
he's
the
always been
information
very
out there.
good.
I know, he works hard. So it makes sense to me to put it on there, especially given how hard they've worked to try to get feedback from people and inform people that are concerned because they're in the district. So let's do it.
Yeah, and if people have questions, we could even say if we do a cover letter to the warrant, people could go to that meeting.
Yeah.
It's certainly not going to make the town meeting any shorter.
What else do they have to do the first week of November?
So that was actually a big question. That's good that we kind of settled that. I'll draft a warrant this week or so. And then the only thing, kind of a hanging question for me, is the Lake Garfield Working Group. We kind of shorted them at annual town meeting. I'm to blame more than anyone. And then John Levin tried to raise them funds on the floor, but that was difficult because of how much free cash we had left. And I don't know. I'm going to talk to Mike this week about the Dash stuff. And given how much Friends of Lake Garfield has had to do in the past, and us trying to say we'll take responsibility now that the district has failed, the tax district has failed. I don't know if we want to try to move some money to them for Dash, which seemed like it had pretty popular support at the annual town meeting, other than logistically was difficult to find the money on the floor of town meeting.
Right.
Yeah. I would concur with that from the May meeting.
Yeah, so those would be the only things that I would add. And then I don't think we're gonna have anything as far as like the possible items. We're probably not gonna have any STR items, right?
No.
And we probably won't have to transfer community center lighting funds to the pavilion construction because we're far off from that. And I don't think Adam Cheat is going to have anything for the easement for the Fiber Connect equipment, because my last email to him, it sounded like their engineers were not figuring anything out quick and in a hurry. And I don't think I have anything prepared for the Lake Garfield Working Group to make it a permanent group, more so than it already is, kind of an ad hoc select board appointed group. That's probably going to be a bylaw, if anything, so it should really happen after we do the bylaws. So in some ways we'll have, if all the possible items don't really come to fruition, but we add in a couple of these items, we're looking at 8 articles or so. Oh, well, we'll definitely have, we're going to have prior year bills And then what I have is the bylaw review committee proposal, the 5-year recycling contract, funds for the audit of fiscal year 24, the PARC grant thing that sounds like we want to vote no on, the senior tax work-off abatement increase, transferring funds from the special stabilization to OPEB, prior year bills, Lake Garfield working group money for Dash potentially, and the historical commission money for the district consultant.
Which is plenty. Looks like, I don't know if you follow this, but it looks like there also won't be anything about the changes we need to make for the accessory dwelling unit situation, for this meeting. It'll probably be on the
Yeah.
May warrant, and there'll probably be a hearing at some point in February to try to, it looks like having a hearing in February will meet, looks like it could meet the requirements for the state, which the law actually says we're supposed to have like enacted changes in accordance with the new law by February, but, which is ridiculous, because we're not the only town that meets in May. So, and the turnaround time would have been kind of absurd, given that it requires zoning changes and that requires all kinds of posting and hearings. So it's weird that they passed it like that, but anyway, that's sort of the current scuttlebutt, that they'll be, if, it's likely the state will accept it if they have hearings by that February date.
Yeah, that makes
I mean,
sense.
really, well, what could they expect? It's one thing if you're doing it by caveat because you have a mayor. It's another thing if you have to do it by town meeting, like, that was just ridiculous.
Yeah, they should have said by July or something. That's kind of totally unrealistic.
I would agree. The one piece it looks like the select board is gonna have to consider, so I did get, an email from Laura on behalf of the planning board
About the lawyer.
about being able to consult, counsel regarding the implications for the planning board and changes in zoning law of this law, the Affordable Homes Act. And the piece that I think we're gonna have to deal with from the select board standpoint is we need a pro and cons list for whether we wanna be, considered a, what is it, a secondary,
Seasonal.
seasonal community.
Yeah.
Because it does carry requirements as well as advantages, but I think it's a really long act and it's quite complicated, and I really do think this is an appropriate use of counsel to get, because we're not gonna be the only one, right? They are counsel for a lot of communities. And this law is gonna affect communities all over, Massachusetts, not just in Berkshire County. So getting some feedback on what those pros and cons are. Because we might not want to be, a seasonal community. I don't think we'd be doing
So-
anything on that front until the May meeting, so it's
Mhm.
not relevant to this meeting, but it came up this week, so I wanted to put that out there for us to be thinking about, as well as I personally am in favor of giving the planning board leadership permission to contact council to get those questions answered. So.
I agree. I just, if you're saying there is some select board responsibility, would it make sense for a board member and maybe yourself, Susan, to work with Laura and figure out what are the responsibilities of the planning board and what are the responsibilities of the select board?
Sure, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah. Do you want to just tell Laura that so that if you can be the liaison for us and Laura for the planning board, and then consulting with Donna and figuring out what planning board needs to do as far as hearings and zoning bylaw, and what select board needs to do.
Yep, and can I go ahead and tell them they have permission to contact council?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I was getting at is if you want to make it kind of like a group email chain between you and Laura and Donna to keep everyone instead of them going and finding out their part and you going separately, and just keep everyone in the loop without CCing everybody, make you the point people.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, will do.
Justin, for the November meeting, from
Yeah.
one of our previous notes, what about the easement for Fiber Connect?
I don't think Adam's going to have it ready. My last email to him, let me find it quickly here. I emailed him out of the blue and said, hey, do you have that? This was a little over a month ago, and he said, we're trying to find a surveyor who has time to get it done. And also the dispute between the town and the abutter produced several surveys. He said, worst case scenario, we target the spring meeting.
Okay.
So if it's ready, it will be on there, but I'm not holding my breath.
All right, are we ready for town administrator updates?
Yeah.
Sure. Kyle Pettibone, he sent a resignation letter, and I was just asked, he sent it yesterday, so that's why it's not on the agenda, and I was just asked, even though the resignation letter is technically for the end of August, I was just asked that it be recognized by the select board. I don't know if you need a vote on a resignation, would you vote on a
We don't
resignation?
vote, but
Okay,
we can hereby acknowledge its receipt.
okay, good, because that was
I
what
second.
that was what the treasurers were asking, and now that we have now I understand the whole process and that we do require a resignation letter, when he was told he wasn't.
I will go further and say, I clearly remember hearing about his resignation in August, that it was forthcoming.
Yes, I did too, but I did not see a resignation letter at the time.
Indeed.
The other thing is just an acknowledgement of Pat Norse, who has been a long time swap shop volunteer, sort of kind of like the lead on that, I guess, is how she's been acting there. And she is leaving the town of Monterey, my understanding. Yeah, she is moving down into Connecticut to be closer to family. So I believe there's going to be a big tag sale this weekend down at their house on Main Road. So, but I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that she is leaving, and that I did put an article in the October Monterey News that we're looking for volunteers, more volunteers down there, and that October 1st I'll send out something on our news and announcements, and also through the Monterey Google groups, just to put some, because it is also part of the abatement program. All three people down there are taking advantage of that. Last for me is the elevator. I'm working now with United Elevator, which is another company that's been recommended by a couple people in town here who've worked with them before.
Because Otis just isn't doing the job.
Otis isn't quite doing the job, and Otis is much more expensive.
Okay.
So, and they bought out the company that I think we had, Bay State Elevator, who we had been using for a long time. They bought out Bay State Elevator.
Okay.
And things sort of changed. This is when I've been talking to a couple people in town here who were intimate with both companies. So we've gone to United Elevator. It is a little less expensive. They come once every 2 months on their update, just on their maintenance. They are helping us do the placard removal. That's actually been scheduled for October 1st. So October 1st, they will be here along with the state inspector. They'll go through the fixes that had to be made. There was nothing wrong with the elevator. It actually was the room itself was the issue, which was a little frustrating because the room has been here for, how long has this building been? 20 years now? When did they do the addition?
So why is it suddenly not okay?
Exactly. So for some reason, it was not okay. Actually, it was last year it was not okay, and it was it was in 2023 that they initiated it, and it was kind of pushed off, and it just happened to coincide with me starting here, that they came in and said no more. So that will take place in October.
But we expect the elevator to be running in October?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, the one thing that they did find, was that there's an emergency battery, kind of the same kind of battery
Yeah,
you use
yeah.
for your, for just like, if you wanna run your TV or something like that, it's the same kind of thing. It's actually used, to run the, to make sure that the elevator slowly, when the electricity goes off, it makes sure that the elevator slowly goes down to the lower level. That was, needed to be updated. So we needed a new one. So that's the only thing, I got the invoice for that, and I'm paying for that, taking care of all that. So hopefully it'll get done, and on October 1st, the elevator will be all up and running again.
Okay.
All right,
No problems.
yay, that would be great, definitely in time for
The election.
voting, which is awesome.
Yep. And that's all I have.
Unanticipated business.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
I got a couple. Brian wrote a good email about the speed
Oh, yeah.
delay. I know that I've exchanged text messages with Paul. I was gonna give Paul a call and just sort of update him what the data says. And then,
I felt way better about the situation.
yeah, I know, I came in and talked to Brian, and then he wrote the email, he pulled, but he put 6 hours, or police officers put 6 hours in monitoring the speed. There was talk about maybe putting speed limit goes from 40 to 25, putting a 30 in there somewhere to maybe do that, but, I was just gonna say, Paul had originally said, before last Tuesday, oh, I'd like to come to the select board meeting. I was gonna give him a call and just update him where we are on that. The other thing is, the owner of Half Moon, he is supposed to call me. He's coming back to town in the next week. He said he'd sit down and have coffee with me about his PA system. The other thing is, I saw the email where the state's taking over the dispatch office for the sheriff.
Mhm.
Is there any chance, Susan, you think we could get, there's always this data about, well, there was a call from Monterey, but it didn't go to Berkshire Ambulance, it went somewhere else. You'll have a different management team, and because there's always that question, how often does this happen?
Right, because we really don't know.
We
how
don't know, but-
frequently They're just not being called because they're already out.
Right, but is there a way that, I thought if there's a new management team, that we maybe say, is there any way you can record this? I don't.
It's never, I've never actually tried to reach out to the dispatch office. It's an interesting question.
I believe it's being taken over by the state police.
It's the state, and they said,
State police, yeah.
according to that letter or email, that they were gonna give it a year, and then it was a period of time they would take it over, and then they would sort of say, here's where we are, what we need to do. But I felt like if they went into it now, and we said start recording that information, it'd be interesting to see what we get.
Or at least they may have been recording it, but the question is, how do we access the data?
Yeah.
Dude, just so you're following, the tricky part is that we know how often the ambulance company tells us the number of calls they responded to. But what they don't tell us is how many times they weren't called and somebody else was, because they don't know. Because dispatch, if they know that SBA's ambulance or ambulances are already out, doesn't ever contact them, just calls a different company, whoever's next on the list. So it's hard for us to find out how many calls they're not responding to because they never get that call.
But do you know approximately how many calls a month it is that our ambulance come out here?
I don't know.
No, Sean, I think I've asked Sean, but I honestly can't remember.
It'd be
I know, I
interesting,
feel the same way.
like even a scratch paper, Monterey.
Well, if we
there's
knew
Southern
how many
Berkshire,
calls there were to
and then
here, and we knew how many they responded
Okay.
to, then we could do the math,
Okay.
but.
Yeah, I just thought it might be an opportunity with new management.
To get some numbers from them.
Ask the question.
I wonder who we'd even, I guess we could I could try calling the state police.
I guess, those guys, the guys up in Lee.
Yeah, it's just always tricky, cause if you
Yeah.
call the barracks, you're not gonna, but they might be able to
Yeah,
tell
there
you
must be-
who
there must be
to talk to, and dispatch, you'd have to talk to a supervisor, cause you can't have a
Right,
conversation
can't call
with dispatch.
911.
Yeah, right, I'm not calling 911 to do
Hey,
it.
guys.
This is the test. But where is that? Do you know where that office is?
It's in Lanesboro, I think. It's either in Dalton or Lanesboro.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, it's up that way. It was, I think it was in Pittsfield at one point. Because again, I was talking to Sean. It's been a while, a couple months. I think it was in Pittsfield, but then it ended up moving out into Dalton or Lanesboro, somewhere over there.
And I think it's probably time for us to have another meeting with Sean, and see where things are going with that,
Mhm.
how things are working with Otis as well. And
Frank, to quickly return to the speeding issue that you mentioned.
Yes,
Yeah, I saw the letter from Brian. It's good. I wonder, it's one of those things too where I bet people see a police car and they slow down. But how can you ever change that, right?
yeah, I mean, there's a couple, you know, particularly if you're going east to west and you come around the corner and they're down there, you don't see it.
I was
I,
thinking that,
I passed someone getting pulled over this morning,
Well,
right near
when
Kevin's house.
when I talked to Brian, he said that, you know, you got someone for doing 40, but, you know, most of them high 20s, maybe 30.
I think it was just for knowledge, so the cops spent about 6 hours on different days and at different times of day monitoring speed on the west side of town by that turn. And the average was about 28 miles an hour, and the low was 20 and the high was 40.
Yeah, and the woman.
So even the
that was-
person that was speeding was not,
Yeah, but he gave the woman the ticket.
yeah,
That's what he told
she
me.
deserved a ticket, but the point is, they weren't doing 60,
Yeah, well, they're not.
right? I mean,
Well,
there
the
are,
other thing, when we talked with Jim last week, he said they were gonna take out that sign that has the speed limit when you come around the corner, heading east to west.
the one that used to actually have a radar on.
Yeah.
Oh, that one, yeah, there's a new one coming.
Oh.
We're thinking of moving it.
Okay,
Yeah, because that one isn't working anymore.
yeah, no, he said it's plugged into the school.
Yeah, it's powered by that, yeah.
So since we're talking about speeding, can I make a public comment about speed limits? I mean, it's the same subject.
Right.
And then I don't have to wait. It's highlighted down there, see? So, roadside store. My thought is, I mean, this whole problem going on, everybody's trying to solve things and stuff. But when you're heading east, you get to, who lives there now? The house just before the store on the other side, Pauline's house.
Mhm.
And it changes from 35 to 40. Instead of doing that, change it to 30 there and make the 30 continue until just after Curtis Road.
Mhm.
It would make so much, you should be going slower there, not faster.
Yeah.
And that would be a little bit of help, it wouldn't solve everything, but that would be a little bit of help to just make that change.
Even just moving the 35 so that the change happens at Curtis, even if we didn't lower it.
Yeah, but you go to
30,
Curtis and when you come up the hill, it drops back down.
Goes to 30, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's a straightaway there,
yeah.
and upon which people go way
Way
more than 40.
In the
but-
morning, I guarantee you, if you're doing 40, the chance of getting past is pretty high.
Oh, God, yes.
You know, like, I'm not going to work, they are. You know?
I feel the same way.
You're making
I'm
that-
doing the speed.
That's a conversation that's happened between several people. It's that exact scenario that you said.
Change that.
Something, whether it's 35 or
Moving the
30, but moving the 40 to a different spot. for
Yeah,
the-
yeah, I mean, because you don't need to pick up speed, you know, right when you're gonna be going past
The store.
the store. I mean, that's just a bad place to do it.
Conversely, lowering the speed limit in that same spot on the other side of the road
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes.
Or even putting this will sound funny, but you ever seen the like notice that the speed limit changes ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Putting that at the beginning of this straightaway going west,
Yeah.
right? So that it's all the way, so that they're already on notice, like,
Yeah.
you better drop your speed before you get to the roadside store. Like, yeah,
Just as long as you don't change the 35 sign on this side of the road when you're heading west, because that's my property line, and that's how I know my property, where my property line is.
wait, where is that one? The 35 sign?
When you're heading west,
Yeah,
and
Before
you-
River Road.
before River Road,
Yeah, no.
okay,
there's a third, where you
Right.
drop from 40 to
35.
35, that's where my property
Well,
line
that's on the
is.
other side, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right,
you always
yeah.
have- you've always-
so don't move that, just don't move that sign. Actually, I don't care what it says, as long as it stays there.
Yes, this is the physical boundary. Alright,
Alright,
okay.
so as long as that's a thought, that's
Yep.
part of this whole process, which is
Mhm.
a mess.
And
No, that's all, no.
I did feel better to know that it wasn't outrageously high, and even though people might drop their speed, if he was placed as they come around the corner, that would be too little too late,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like,
I
especially
thought
on
that-
westbound traffic, I feel like they probably got pretty good numbers.
it's never gonna be perfect.
No.
Mhm.
Alright, thank you, midnight.
Thanks,
Have
Vicky.
a lovely evening, it's been a lovely meeting,
It's good to see
all
you.
kinds of things talked about, good, good
There,
night.
we covered a lot,
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
moved along
Good
today.
night.
Anything else, Justin?
I don't have any minutes. I mean, I just sent one set, but we probably won't approve any minutes tonight, so I think we're all good to go.
Okay.
Is everyone up for meeting next week? I think with the town meeting warrant coming up, it'd be useful to meet next week and probably the following week too, just to hammer it out and.
You got, everybody's nodding their heads,
Yes.
so yes, we're
Okay.
all in favor.
Yeah.
All right.
Your job is to get better, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try my best.
I know, right? David's sick too.
Ah.
He woke up this morning all just sort of sounding terrible.
I would think that somebody else supposed to have a meeting with on Thursday or Wednesday is sick too, tomorrow.
I don't know, something's going around. I'm hoping it's a cold. I don't know, maybe I brought it back from Ireland,
You
but
did.
I'm not sick. Although I do feel like, I felt all day like I could just take a nap, which I never do, so.
Oh, why did you tell me that 2 hours ago?
Well, it could also be that the puppy's been waking up at 4:15 in the morning. So I'm pretty much describing it to that.
And
I
adjourn,
know, pardon?
adjourn?
Adjourn, I have been
Motion.
meeting at.
Adjourn at 8:01.
8:01, so 2 hours exactly.
You have to have a
Boom.
second in that and a vote?
I second.
All in favor?
Yes, from Justin.
Yeah. Have a great night, mister.
Hope you feel better,
Alright.
Justin.
Get an
Thank
early
you.
night. He woke up at 4:15.